So do a 5-minute speech on PSF.
Hi everybody, we're just setting up. We had to just restart it because the permissions was just set to UK only. We've got some people from Canada coming through. I'm just going to promote, just sort out who I need to. Just bear with me 1 second. Just waiting for Kieran. Is Kieran in? Right, I'm just making sure. Hi, Emma, you okay?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. I know what I'm doing, so I'll go back on mute.
No, that's all right. Do you know where Kieran is?
Yeah, he was just waiting to come in, so I'll let him know that it's time. 1 second.
It's time, let him in. Me and James are here. That's Gregory. We need to allow him to let the panelists turn their video on, if you can do that when he's in.
Yeah, am I a host?
I'm going to make you a co-host now. Do you want to have a look at that as well?
Yeah.
So, just making sure. We're just waiting for Kieran to join, and then we can get everything started. Thank everyone for joining.
Katya, she's supposed to be allowed to talk, is she?
Who, sorry?
Katya,
Yeah,
Kowalski.
just 1 second. Hi, Katya.
Hello, how's it going?
Hi, Paul, you okay? We're just kind of transferring everyone over. I'm just waiting for Kieran to join. He's going to share the meeting today.
Cool. I can't share my video, but I don't know if that's just a
No,
setting.
it's me. We just need to turn it on.
You need to allow them to be panelists.
Who?
Hi, guys.
Katya and Gregory.
I've done Katya. I'm just looking for
I can't start my video, but I can have my audio
No, it's
on.
fine. We're going to be able to sort that in a second. Just bear with us.
Cool.
Right, we've got everybody over to panelists now. I'm just trying to see where.
There's also a guy named Chris McGrath who's going to be coming over.
Just checking it. So everybody in the attendance looks like should be there. I'm just trying to see how I don't know where Kieran is.
No.
Have you tagged him in the Discord?
Yeah, 1 sec. Give him the link.
I'm just trying to. There's a way to.
Yeah, they've got the wrong link, so I've given them the right link.
Okay. Just trying to. There is a way that you can turn on the video for a panelist. It was Kieran
knows how to do it.
Yeah, he's going to do that. So I hope everyone's okay. And thank you everyone for joining. We're just making sure that everyone's in, and then we can get started. I've got James with me from 4C Labs. He's sat on a shorter chair. We could have swapped chairs, but he's all right on that way. You can see him. Is everyone okay?
I'm all right, mate. Yeah, I'm good. Good to see many friendly names in the chat. Lots of people I recognise. Thanks for joining.
Yeah, lots of familiar names and faces.
Yeah, we should get a few people join. I don't know where Kieran is.
Are you looking after James?
I am.
James,
Yeah.
help.
He's he's had some potato ash, lobby. It's called in Wigan, haven't you?
Yeah, it's lovely.
Potato ash.
I've never been to Manchester, so I thought I would come up and meet Sarah in person after discussing things on Zoom calls for so long. Why not?
Right, I think we've got a few more people in now. I'm just making sure we've got everybody who should be on the panel. Where are your guys going to be? So
Greg Dobbins should be there.
We've got Gregory. Hi, Gregory.
Chris McGrath from Bazam/TGod will join us at 6:10.
Okay, I'm just going to make Kieran a co-host now. Hi, Kieran.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, can you let it so that they can turn the videos on?
You just need to make my account. I've got two, but you just need to make my account co-host, yeah, and then I should be able to do it.
Yeah.
Let's see.
I just cannot find the button. You have to show me where that is.
I believe I've done it now. Let me turn on my video. So everyone should be able to enable their video now. Okay.
Hi, Katya.
Amazing. Hi.
Hi, Paul.
So the name is Chris LeBlanc.
Chris. Okay, so is he on there now?
It was a different Chris, but it's actually Chris.
Right, we're just waiting for a few people to join. So Kieran, I'm going to hand over to you.
Okay, sorry, I can't see. Have we got all the guests so far? So we've got Paul, we've got Gregory, got Katya, we've got Sarah with James Smith, and then we're waiting on T-God.
Yeah,
that's
so
okay, that's fine.
Chris he just sent a note that he's running a few minutes late, and he will be here at 6:10. His name is Chris LeBlanc.
And where's he from? Sorry.
He's from T-God.
T-God. Okay, thank you.
He's one of the
No problem.
growers from T-God.
Okay, no problem. So good evening, everyone, and welcome to the first Medical Cannabis Patients Association Industry Rep meeting of 2024, and a happy new year to you all. My name is Kieran. I'll be hosting the first part of this evening. I hope you're ready as I am to get back to fighting for greater access to medical cannabis in the UK and working constructively with those leading industry. So to kick the year off, we've got some interesting guests kindly joining us tonight to answer some important questions prepared by patients. After they've introduced themselves for the first hour, those guests will answer questions that have been prepared in advance, and then we'll open it up to attendees. So patients, if you've got any last minute questions, be sure to put them in the Q&A section in this Zoom webinar, and later we'll call upon you to raise your hand, and we will then unmute you so that you can ask your question directly. If you do not raise your hand, we will ask them aloud for you. So please keep all questions respectful and shorter than 2 minutes so that we can answer as many as possible. So the guests that we've kindly providing their time this evening tonight for us are James Smith, who is the CRO of 4C Labs, Katya Kowalski. Sorry, have I got that?
Sorry, James.
Sorry,
I'm the Chief Revenue Officer.
CRO.
Greg Dutchman below me is the Chief Executive Officer. Yes.
The CRO, yeah. And we've got Katya Kowalski, the Head of Operations from Volteface, and Paul North, the Director of Volteface. And we've said we've got Greg Dobbin, the CEO from 4C Labs, to speak on behalf of the Pure Sun Farms. And later we'll have somebody from the Green Organic Dutchman, also known as T-God. So remember, we're also live streaming this event on the MCPA YouTube channel, and you can find information about our weekly patient meetings, regular Zooms at mcpa.uk. And remember to submit your videos so we can share patient stories and spread awareness. So let's go around, and each of the guests will take a few short minutes to introduce themselves and provide us a little background. Growers, this is your time to talk about your product, and then Volteface may want to share what opportunities they have for patients to get involved with the research they conduct through their Patients First scheme. So shall we start with you, Sarah, on your camera?
Yeah, can start with me. So go on, James.
Oh, okay. Well, thanks very much for having me, Kieran and Sarah. And I appreciate all the attendees here. I know some of these names, and I'm glad to see that you're here and interested. So my name is James Smith. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer of 4C Labs. Along with Greg Dobbin, we're some of the co-founders of the company. My role in the company is to source material, develop sales strategy plans, speak with patients, understand the needs of the patients, and go back out into the world and then try to find the medicines that I think that will be of benefit to the patients. So our just to sum up, our basic sort of mission is to bring illicit medical cannabis patients who are in the illicit market from there into the legal medical market. We think that stable supply chains of medicines that are clean, safe, ethically grown, legal is, and ideally far less expensive than the illicit market is the mission of our organization. And when as a brief strategy around how do we pick a company, and Greg may touch on this later, but when I look to a producer, there's a number of things that are very important for me and for the rest of the team, which is it has to have a stable supply chain, knowing that we can get the same medicines over and over again on a consistent basis. It needs to offer great value to the patient versus what the illicit market pricing would offer for a similar valued product. And I also am very concerned with ensuring that they have a selection of genetics that have been stabilized correctly without cutting any corners, that reflect, in my mind, how I as a patient consume cannabis, which is through the day. And so that's looking towards genetics that can, for daytime use, after dinner use, or after work use, and then sleepy time use. And I personally like to sometimes mix those together for those different parts of the day, and I make 50-50s with the different genetics. But it's very important to me that we deliver these three distinct sort of effects for the patient so that they can pick and choose what works best for them. And so a producer that's only producing sort of one type of product or one set of results or one set of effects is not really of interest to us. We need to see those multiple effects because we are a medical cannabis company. We are not in the recreational business. And so we have launched some new products, and they're in the market now. And we are also going to be, we have joined Project 2021. So if there's any Project 2021 patients, we'll be on the formulary, I think, this week. I think the paperwork's being finalized and the information's being exchanged, but we are very much concerned about trying to grow the market. We're not interested in cannibalizing other companies' patients. We want to add new patients to the sector. That is our mission. And we hope that the product lines that we bring in reflect that, and that the patients find value in what we're offering. Thank you.
Brilliant, thank you. So we'll move back and forth. Shall we move over to Katya, Kowalski? Do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, sure. I'll unmute, and I'm happy to do an introduction with Paul, and for Paul to kind of to add in some thoughts around Volteface. So yeah, I'm Katya Kowalski. I'm head of operations at Volteface. I've been at Volteface for over 3 years now. Joined in kind of the midst of COVID, which was a very interesting time to join the cannabis industry. And I'm sure that lots of you will have come across Volteface and know about Volteface, but we're an advocacy and communications agency that's specialized and focused on the cannabis sector in the UK. We've been around kind of really since the very beginning of the industry, and we ran one of the campaigns in 2018 that led to the legalization of medical, and we've done a range of different work around cannabis over the years. We've got a content platform which we post regularly about the industry and developments around cannabis called volteface.me. And really all of the work that we do in the sector centers around improving the patient experience and holding the industry to account to ensure that patients are heard and kind of at the heart of what people are doing. And I'm sure we'll get a chance to talk about this a bit later, but we've got a database called Patients First, which patients can sign up to, and we offer and regularly recruit for market research studies. So patients, if they meet the criteria of a study, have the opportunity to take part in focus groups or surveys to help companies better understand, the experiences that patients are facing and the barriers patients are facing. And patients obviously get remunerated for their time for participating too. Yeah, Paul, is there anything else you'd like to add?
That was great. You draw the short straw there, didn't you? Getting called up first. I was like, it's going to not loads to add. Thanks so much for having us both on. Really admiring the work that you guys are doing, as we said on a call with you the other week, and appreciate everyone's attendance and look forward to answering some questions. I guess my quick background, so I worked at Volteface for 7 years, backgrounds in criminology, worked in treatment services for 10 years, and then, past 7 years have been really working to try and improve medical cannabis access and just cannabis access generally, really, although we've kind of zoned in on medical the past few years, but just broader access for cannabis is something the organizations talked about and campaigned about a lot in the past. I guess the other thing to add that might prompt some questions, or there might be some already there, is the work we've done around the politics of cannabis. So Katya and I have worked really hard to secure the APPG for Medical Cannabis on Prescription Secretariat alongside the Medical Cannabis Clinician Society, which is a huge amount of work to finally get that. But the reason we did that is we felt that there's just so much more positive engagement to do with politicians. And although it was politicians that kind of kicked things off in 2018, we wouldn't be in this position if it wasn't for political support and change over the subject. There's still so much to do. And I guess one of the things that we've said publicly and also said to the politicians is we felt that since 2018, the politicians have been very heavily distracted by just a couple of core issues and have not been looking further afield. And there's so much more that Westminster can do to support the medical cannabis sector. So Katya, I would be really interested in any questions, thoughts or reflections on things that you think could be important for us to raise with politicians, and be very, very happy to help the group in general engage politicians. Maybe we could get some to come on and speak to you guys directly, because there are a number of politicians who are pretty helpful. And there are many more who are not so, but they're not the ones we want to speak to right now. So anyway, thanks for having us on. Really appreciate it.
No, that's brilliant. We appreciate having you both here tonight, Paul. So I know I've got a couple of quite political questions for you later. So we'll move it over to Gregory. Gregory, do you want to unmute yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Now I'm unmuted. Perfect. Thanks for the intro, Kieran. And Kieran and Sarah, thank you very much for having us. My name's Greg Dobbin. I'm the CEO of 4C Labs. Good some days to have that job, and other days I'd rather be making coffee. Dobbin in the Oxford Dictionary stands for a slow-plodding horse or an old nag who children throw stones at. So that's kind of an homage to my British history. Kind of a funny thing. I don't have much more to add than what James had talked about. I think that as a company and growing up in Canada, where cannabis was never viewed as a negative generally, particularly not on the West Coast where I live now and where James lived for decades, it just doesn't have the same stigmatization as it does in the UK. And because of extremely lax law enforcement, for example, there were 276 illegal dispensaries operating in the city of Vancouver prior to legalization, with name tags, cash registers, store sign, and websites. So it was something that was widely accepted, and I think the net result of that in Canada was you had a lot of growers had a lot of time to practice their craft, and for people within society, both on the medical side and the rec side, to understand what products they liked. And I think we have a really interesting evolution of products as a result of that. And I think that there are a couple of things about Canada that are interesting. Our power rate is 5 cents Canadian to kilowatt hour in most provinces, which is 3p maybe. Our labor rate is about 12 pounds an hour. And most of the producers that you're now seeing rising up through the ranks of the producers in Canada who have been successful have paid for buildings, existing operations. And so they have a lot of experience compared to other companies in the world. So, James and I have really spent a lot of time looking around Canada. We've got Chris here from TGOD, who's an amazing grower who has a lot of experience in the legacy market prior to ever doing anything in the legalized market in Canada. And I think our goal is to bring products like that to you guys. And I think the last thing I'll say is, when you look at people's ability to spend money, when we talk about the times of day that James feels like products are ideal for, daytime, after work, nighttime, not everyone can afford the same thing. So part of our goal is to be able to bring products that everybody can afford, but they all get efficacy with. So you're going to be able to buy a Fraser Valley product from Pure Sun Farms that's going to be a 4 pound 50 gram. You're going to be able to buy a Pure Sun Farms product that is the #1 seller in Canada for 6 pounds a gram. You're going to be able to buy Chris's product, and now that they moved to hang dry, it's going
Gregory,
to be
sorry, I don't want to interrupt. Just be careful mentioning brands and prices.
Oh yeah, sorry, no
All right,
problem.
just
And
let
then
you
you're
know.
going to be. I didn't know. I'm sorry. James knows
It's
more
all
about
right,
this
just
than
for
I
you,
do.
that's all. I can
I
see
just
James
charge around like a
panicking.
bull in a china. Oh, James, you having a heart attack?
He's having a
Sorry,
heart
everyone. I'm not
attack.
allowed to talk about that. We've got
I
Chris here,
couldn't
whose
unmute
product will
myself
be not
quick
slightly
enough.
above that.
Oh, James, look, he's dying.
Sorry, James. And then we've got Chris's product here, that will be
Don't worry.
not slightly above that. And then we've got some craft producers as well coming down the pipe later. So I won't talk about pricing anymore. But we do spend. James has been a cannabis aficionado for his entire lifetime since he was old enough to walk. It's kind of like someone from Dublin being on the Guinness at the age of 2. It's the same kind of thing. He has a lot of knowledge in the topic, and he is really passionate about the whole thing. So I wanted you guys to know that, because it's important that you understand where we're coming from. We're not less a money-making operation and more an operation that's interested in helping people and helping you get the great products at a great price that I'll never talk about again. Thank you.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Gregory. So I believe we've got Chris LeBlanc here. Am I right in saying that you're representing the Green Organic Dutchman? Do you want to go ahead, Chris?
Absolutely. So I've been the master grower, we call it TGOD for short, for the last 3 years, living organic soil. So I have 70,000 feet of flower in greenhouse, and that soil has not been changed in 3 years. We work in a sense that we feed the soil and not the plants. Microbiology is really what we're doing. We refer to as living soil. It gives us a huge advantage as farmers because we don't have to do as much work, but we have to act a little bit more like scientists because we work really hard to steward our soil as if we were a farm. But in terms of living soil and organic, it's a really great way to grow medical cannabis because You get the plant, basically, in my opinion, expressing everything that it should. We don't have that leaf senescence at the end of our life cycle. Our leaves are still very green to the end. So we naturally let our plants do exactly what they're supposed to do. We're not feeding them chemical fertilizers to get the flower to finish. We're actually taking our plants through the entire cycle as long as it needs to go, okay? And this really, for me, gives us our ability to see the level of terpenes that we have and the vast array of cannabinoids that we actually see on our plants at TGOD, or we'll say BZAM as well. The other thing I find with organic is, in my opinion, it hits a little bit above its belt in terms of efficacy. So that's something that I find is really good. Staying power and the effects, to me, in organic are clear for myself. And you know, we're a big part of the medical community in Canada, a big reason why it started. So it's something that we're always looking at. And I believe that organic is going to give us that cleaner smoke that I think patients really need as an important thing as well. The other thing is our facility was purpose built. So it was built to be a cannabis greenhouse. This was not a cucumber greenhouse or poinsettia flower greenhouse. So we do not have the issues with botrytis or powdery mildew and a lot of the molds that other facilities would have. I think that's another thing that I really want to point out. And we really don't spray. I mean, that's something that we're really against. And the only reason that we have to irradiate right now is because we have to send it over the pond as GMP, and as per GMP government regulations on your side, we have to do that to the product. But it's not something that we do to our product unless we have to in this situation. So.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Chris. So yeah, thank you, guests, for providing us with further background into the valuable work that you do in this industry. And I look forward to Volteface sharing your exciting new opportunities with us a little later. So just to note, Mason Soiser, the CEO for Relief Clinic, was unfortunately not able to attend this event and now may be joining us in March. Throughout the month, questions are gathered from weekly meetings, social media, our regular Zoom meetings and Discord group to be asked in industry rep meetings. We try to ask all questions, however, some may be added too late. Some may have already been answered in our Discord, and some questions may have been amended or removed as they were deemed too rude or inappropriate for the particular guest that we have this evening. So some of our guests have said that they can only join us for a short time this evening, so we'll be asking Paul and TGOD prepared questions first, and then move on to Volteface and 4C Labs and Pure Sun Farms. So TGOD, we'll start with you. So the patient has asked, will your recently announced move to hang drying result in higher prices for patients? No?
Greg's shaking his head no. So I'm going to say no.
Okay.
I can't talk about pricing. It will be less than what it's selling for now.
No specifics. I understand that.
It's fine. Not specific. Is that okay if I say
that? Yeah, no specifics. That's fine. I hope I'm getting the nod from Sarah, maybe. Okay, so we'll yeah, that was a quick fire one. So we'll ask the next one. So the next one is Chris. Why do you choose to rev irradiate your products?
So we have to irradiate the products because of the GMP rules sending it into England.
Okay. All right, well, no quick fire questions, quick fire answers. So we'll hand.
Aaron, could I add something to that?
Yeah, no, of course. Go ahead. Anyone who has anything that they feel they want to add, please just put in.
Yeah, so I think the thing that I would like to add to it is that as a company, we play by the rules, and there are specific rules outlined in the GMP monograph, which are the regulations that surround pharmaceutical products that enter the UK that we have to stick to. What happens when you have legislative change is that the enforcement of the regulations doesn't happen because the government's not that quick. Governments move very slowly. So the regulations say one thing, and we're sticking to the regulations. People at the moment are doing all kinds of things. They're bringing in product that's non-irradiated and saying it conforms. There's no chance that it does. They're bringing in product that says has stability. There's no chance the stability is done correctly. They're bringing in product where we print our COAs on our website, so any patient can go on our website and see exactly what the product tested at and exactly what's going on with it. The reason we do that, and it's really important, is because we want to be completely transparent in the way we do things. The microbe limit on products that enter the UK is 10 squared CFUs, which is a really low number, and it's literally almost impossible to hit growing a plant. It just is. And the problem we have is we're trying to weigh potentially slightly better product that's non-irradiated versus the needs of patients who have AIDS, who are in palliative care, cancer treatment, children, et cetera, et cetera. And the reason the microbe limits are set that way is for scientific reasons, and there's really nothing we can do about it. So if over time, we can lobby the government to create two categories, where there is an irradiated category for people who have immunocompromised situations, et cetera, and there's a separate category for everyone else, fantastic. But until that happens, our hands are tied, because we know that we're going to get inspected probably in February. And when we do, every single product that we sell conforms to the regulations in the way that they have to. So sorry to go on about that. I think it's a really important thing in the UK at the moment, and it's important for people to understand, where we're coming from with that.
Okay, no problem.
Thanks,
Thank you for adding to that. So Paul, we've got a political one for you, right and ready. So in April last year, Paul wrote a piece explaining how when the law was changed in 2018, public awareness would have led to greater foundation of medical cannabis in the UK. Paul concluded in this piece, if we truly want to unlock the market, someone has to dig deep and do so not so out of personal gain, but for the greater good. Paul, do you believe that the growing medical cannabis market and industry in 2024 have the greater good in mind?
That's like an essay question, isn't it? Katya, that's a good one for a podcast. It's a broad question. Do I think the industry has the greater good in mind? I think so. I've been around. Yeah, I've been around like since 2016 sector. So I've met lots of characters. I've met lots of people from all walks of the industry. And I think on the whole, the people that work within the industry at this stage are doing so because they feel it's the right thing to do. I think in the early days, I think it was really weird because in 2018, our office was quite dead. And there's probably people that are attending the chat that like popped into our office before 2018, before it was legal. And it was kind of like it was kind of a random spot. It was really random. We get politicians in, random advocates, journalists. And then 2018, when it came legal, like the industry just like descended in London. For all the North Americans arrived and were like, what's going on? How can we help? And I think at that point, when there was loads of people just wanting to get into the space, there were people in the industry who maybe just saw this as like, I want to make as much money as possible as quick. Kieran, that's really trippy. You were just moving your camera, weren't you? Or am I just... Your camera's like zooming out.
Sorry, I've got an iPad. Is it going to do it? There it is.
Oh wow! There we go. Happy fireworks now. Yeah, there was a lot of people that just I think saw the opportunity of making lots of money and kind of came in, not because it was something that they were really passionate about or cared about or held a value around. They just saw it as an opportunity. I think a lot of those people don't really exist in the UK industry anymore because, as Greg mentioned in his introduction, it's very difficult. It's a very challenging sector to work in. Like, you no longer just swan into medical cannabis because you want to make a quick bit of money. You come into medical cannabis because you believe in the power of the medicine and you see the effect it has. And 90% of the people that I meet in industry now have a personal reason as to why they're engaged in it. They'll have a story or they'll hold a value. Having said that, the thing that is really challenging about the sector, and the reason I wrote that article, and the reason I've upset a lot of people, industry people talking about this, is that there needs to be a concerted effort from everyone in the industry to increase awareness. To do that costs an extortionate amount of money, like a very, very, like a huge sum of money. If you want to get the medical cannabis market to where it should be, you need to do viral social media campaigning with huge budgets. I've had so many conversations with people from the industry to try and say, let's do this. But the industry is facing lots of challenges, that everybody's facing their own individual battle. And the problem, once you get to the groups that have the money, the people, big investors or big tobacco, big alcohol, is it ends up being a situation where if they were to fund it and do something like that, kind of everybody wins and it's not really for them. So there are challenging conversations to be had that I know take place at the CIC as well. James has had these me and James have talked about this numerous times. There does need to be this concerted effort. And the lack of that concerted effort isn't because of bad actors or people that are being selfish. Those values, I think, are shared across the industry. It's just the sector's not quite in a place right now where it can collaboratively fund that and not have to worry about it and think, oh, it's fine, let's just put that money towards it. So Have I missed it? Is that Katya? You've unmuted as well, because I know that was kind of for both of us, really, even though I wrote that article. I don't know if you've anything to add.
Yeah, it was ages ago. No, I think you've summarized it pretty well. Yeah, I think there's like still so much to be done to raise awareness, and it's one of those things that the industry is going to have to come together in some form to be able to fund it, or someone's just going to have to fund it and say, you know what, it's just going to benefit everyone in the industry, and that's okay, because we just need to grow the pie before we start fighting over it.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you. Thank you for adding to that as well. So those are the prepared questions.
And
that we've
James,
got.
sorry, butting.
Yeah,
James,
of course.
So just putting my Cannabis Industry Council Prescription Cannabis Subcommittee co-chair hat on. The conversations that I've had with Paul for years are about when we first started the CIC Medical Cannabis Subcommittee. Dr. Sunil Arora and I, was our idea to get the Prescription Cannabis Subcommittee going. We both ran for the role and we got the exact same votes. And he's one of my best mates in the industry. He's a fantastic doctor. And the first thing that we decided that we needed to do was create an awareness campaign, which is why really the purpose of the whole thing. And when we went out to do the work, and I've met with a lot of PR firms, we talked to a lot of different groups, and the lowest price we were looking at was sort of 12 to 15,000 pounds a month for some kind of campaign. And even that was sort of positioned as a partial campaign and not a real campaign. And it was just impossible to find the money to do it. And so, I'm hoping that as we move forward and the industry is more successful, hopefully this year, that each of us in the industry can reach into our pockets and find the sums that we need to do to get that campaign out there. It was really why we started the Prescription Cannabis Subcommittee, was awareness.
And just jumping on that, Kieran, as like as a quick call to action, and this is sort of like credit to the work you're doing, Kieran, with your YouTube channel. There's a huge potential for patients to mobile, because I guess that conversation around what can the industry do, and we will forever be pushing the industry to do more and provide funds and support to advance this, 100%. But I think there's also a really good conversation to be had with patients. Katya and I believe that we're not just us. This isn't just mine and Katya's theory by any means. There's tons of literature on it and social commentary. The media landscape's changing so quick that mainstream media platforms are just declining in popularity, declining in authority. If you can't see the media landscape changing, then you need to start looking outside of mainstream media and who and what people actually listen to. And the days of old in which a campaign would involve, let's engage the mainstream media. We need BBC, we need ITV, we need Channel 4.
Like TikTok.
Those, Sarah, you're not unmuted, by the way, mate. We can hear you. Those days are completely gone. Although I didn't know what you said, Sarah. So I don't know.
Oh, we're just mumbling. I was going to jump in later. I was just going to butt in. Yeah, go on when you're done.
You didn't actually hear it. Now content and news is driven just by people. And if the work that patients are doing to increase awareness through platforms like YouTube and TikTok, that is superb. Katya and I did a focus group not so long ago with a client, and we had about 8 or 9 patients on the call, and we were talking to patients about how did you become aware of medical cannabis. The client wanted to know where some of their patients came from and what their journey was, so they could target their marketing resources to get more patients. And one lady said, oh, it was just a YouTube short. It was in 2019, and I was scrolling through YouTube, and I just saw a video saying, "Did you know that medical cannabis is legal and you can get it?" And then I went on Google and I Googled it, and I signed up to the clinic and I got medication. I had no idea.
And she thought it was a scam. She was like, "I thought it was a scam, so I had to Google it." And then I saw a clinic that offered it.
Yeah, so. but that's because people are on YouTube making content. So the industry is really important. We should forever push the industry to do more. But there's such a good opportunity for patients to just get out there, become content creators, start creating interesting, engaging content about your experience. Katya and I will dedicate time and resource to helping anyone that wants to do that. Katya and obviously create a bunch of content for YouTube. We have an industry show. So if this is anything that people are hearing in your community that they want to do, then you can always give us a shout.
Do reach out.
Yeah, I was just going to jump in on that, because we are kind of trying to push something on that. We're doing a patient testimonials campaign. I've done one. We've got about 4 at the moment. Basically, up to 3 minutes video, something like that, of how medical cannabis helps you, and how it's changed your life, basically. And my thought for that is that we gather as many of those as we can, followed by shots of us vaping outside. You know, we're gathering pictures of people vaping out and about, and we make those into shorts, we make those into TikTok videos, we make them into everything, because we can get around the cannabis advertising laws because we're patients talking about our experience. And I think that's what we should really push for this year. So that's where I'm kind of putting a lot of my time and effort into at the minute. Is I really want to launch a kind of campaign with that, but we've only got like 4 or 5 at the minute, but it's there, like mine's on there, it's had like 30 views. That could be 30 people that have now signed up for cannabis. You just don't know. And you know, and we're also working on a big leaflet campaign that we want to launch. You know, just literally, it's this year is about awareness for the MCPA. But I'll shut up now.
No, it's brilliant. No, I love that you're all talking about YouTube. I came to be a patient because of other channels just to big them up. So they're getting spoken about is because of channels like Katie's New Life, Ed is Talking, and Sky, who's going to be who's going to be hosting a little bit later from Cannabis is Medicine UK. But we'll move it along. We'll move it back onto some of these growers that we've got with us today. So I think it's Gregory, you're representing Pure Sun Farm. So we've got one here that says, the patient asks, do you cure your product?
Yeah, so I'll answer that. I just wanted to ask you guys a quick thing. If you have any more potential questions for Chris, let's ask him, because we're kind of running out of time on him. So if you have any more, great. Chris, if you wanted to say any parting words, we could do that, and then I'm happy to answer anything else.
No problem. So I do have one that I haven't been able to look at the Q&A section, but I have one that's come in quite direct. So I'll try and squeeze this one in. So Chris, I think this one's relevant to you. So why was Rev chosen over gamma or beta irradiation?
The efficient and best way to do it in Canada is through the Rev, okay? And through the facilities that we have in Canada. And that is sort of the industry standard in Canada where we go and do that. So that will be my answer for you right now. Our limited amount of where we are, geographic as well, makes it a lot easier for us. And we would have to ship it out to BC if we wanted to do another process. But because it's in Canada, and BC's, you know, it's a 7-day drive. So we don't want to do that. But in Ontario, we've got very good facility for that. I'm not going to comment on what I think of the quality changes right now. I'm not concerned. The one thing that I do want to parting words is that to understand that in January of 2023, we went to an entire hang dry process. Before that, we were doing a wet trim process, and we were using a automated dryer. So the other part of this is that the product that will be coming into the UK in the future now will all be the hang dry product. And the reason the first lots were not that was because we had to finish stability studies on our hang dry to ensure that it would pass the micro load and make it the way it is. As a cannabis person, I mean, the minute I joined TGOD, I was chirping about going to hang dry. And it was a huge process. Just to give you guys an understanding, we're hanging 12,000 square feet of plants. So we're hanging 4,200 plants in a day. And we're flipping that room and replanting it by that Friday in that week. So everything coming out of TGOD that's going to be coming out now is all hang dry. And as a cannabis user, again, I'm going to repeat it. It's the way it should really be done. And our product is showing the way that we want it to show in this process. So please look forward to that.
Okay. Yeah, brilliant. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah,
enjoy your night. I gotta get back to the greenhouse. Okay?
Hopefully we'll see you again soon.
All right, take care.
Right. Take care. Bye-bye. So so back to Gregory for Pure Sun Farms. The patient asks, do you cure your product?
Yeah, so so hang dry 21, and I'll just be upfront here. CEO of a company, don't work at Pure Sun Farms. I've been to their facility, tried their products. I know the people that work there, they do a great job. There's a specific reason we picked them. Super technical questions. I'm not going to be able to give you an accurate answer. I can answer this, however. And then what we should do is, and when you guys have another podcast, let's get the head grower, Rob from PSF, on. He couldn't make it this week, but he would love to come, and then you can ask him all the questions you want. So they 21 days drying. And then there may be burping that happens subsequent to that if the moisture content doesn't come down to the right range. So they also, as Chris has alluded to, they were tray dryers previously, and they've switched their entire operation to hang dry. So they do, PSF has 5 million square feet of greenhouses. They grow 3.5 million square feet of tomatoes, cherry tomatoes, little guys. and they do 1.5 million square feet of cannabis. So the drying, and they don't dry in the same rooms, that goes to a GMP section where they dry. So the drying section of that facility is about 100,000 square feet roughly. And we've noticed a big difference in quality in their product from the tray dry to the hang dry system. Better nose, and you'll see from the products, PSF's products in the market right now in the UK as of last Friday, and you'll see visible trichromes, great coloring, great nose, like really, really amazing.
Okay, thank you. No, so that's great. So I think there's a question here that I'm going to skip over just because I think you've already answered it in that one there. If there's any questions that you feel on, and this goes for any guest, if there's any questions you feel on relevant to you or not, don't fall within your remit, then please feel free to skip them. So again, for a question for Pure Sun Farms or about Sun Farms, the patient asks, why do Sun Farms use plastic containers for your products in the UK but glass in Canada?
Cost. It's extremely heavy to ship. It's expensive to ship glass. Glass weighs 10 times more than the packs. So the packs that we use for the UK are in bags. So it's like a Mylar bag. We are looking to move towards a fully recyclable Mylar bag. The trick with that is you have to have someone that has a GMP certificate, so a pharmaceutical certificate that allows them to sell that bag, and where it's certified that nothing within that bag is going to potentially contaminate the product. So we're working on it. It's still early days, I think, on the packaging side of things when it comes to GMP. So in the meantime, we've gone with Mylar. You'll see that T-God also sold in glass jars originally, and now is selling in plastic pots. We would like to move them down the conveyor belt to the Mylar bag as well. One of the tricks to changing the product form that you put your product in is that you then have to run a stability studies from scratch on those products. And if you're trying to get 9 months stability on your product, as soon as you switch your product line and put it in a new package, that's 9 months of time from the first harvest until you can sell it into the market.
Yeah, so just to add to the, because I've spent a great deal of time researching biodegradable, child-proof, FDA-approved pouches, something that you can put into your compost bin in your backyard. It's very, very hard to find them, and in GMP so far has been impossible. But the reason why I like pouches is I like pouches because they're more portable than pots. I like pouches because you can push a lot of the air out of it and you can seal it back up again. So I feel that it does a better job of retaining freshness in the flower. And just for basic shipping and the reality and the cost of shipping, it's a much we think it's a much more practical choice for that.
Okay, thank you. Right, so I hope this isn't too risky of a question, and maybe I'll watch for the nod from you guys. But again, for Gregory, will you be bringing any other strains to the UK?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
So I'll answer that question.
Let me answer one quick thing, because I know what the rules are now. I'll just say one thing, and then James, you can go ahead. And I just want to touch on what we talked about before. One of the things that is really important is getting your GMP processes and your stability down. We started working with Pure Sun Farms 2 years and 9 months ago. It has taken us 2 years and 9 months, which was the day they got their GMP cert, until now, to be able to release a product into the market that our quality team was willing to release. It took that long. So what we've pounded home to any of our suppliers is we want 3 genetics to start: daytime, after work, nighttime. We will add to that. You'll see when T-God's new product line comes out, because I'm not talking specifically about products now, comes out in the next batch, we'll have a daytime, an after work, a nighttime, and a heavy nighttime. And then we'll start to do the same thing with PSF and with their sub-brand Fraser Valley, which is the budget line. So each one of these will always come with 3 genetics to start: daytime, after work, nighttime. And then you'll see us start to add to them. But the trick is making sure that the stability is up to date and that you're actually able to add the product and not be cheating on the stability, which we won't do. Sorry, James, go ahead.
So I was just going to say, Kieran, is that I'll even be more crouched in my language because I live here, or I live in Guernsey and part-time in London, is that for the next, every 6 weeks, for the next 6 months, we'll be rolling out a new line of products from a different producer with at least 3 options. with the noted sort of times of day target usage. And each one of those products will have a different price attached to it based around specific empirical measurements that we use internally to decide how a product where it falls into, whether it's value, core, premium, craft, or craft plus. And each one of those categories has a set of parameters that must be met. Otherwise, it falls down to the next category, which entails a different price point. So the idea, as previously discussed, is to create a variety of price points, a variety of different products that have a variety of different effects, so that ideally we can grow the market with new patients and get people out of the illicit market and into the legal market, and using the clinics like Integro, Medica, Sapphire, and the other clinics that are working in the country. There's now 30 clinics, and it's also why we're fighting, as you guys would know, on my obsession about getting cheap general practitioners to be able to prescribe in the UK. So, but we hope that we can bring these in on an ongoing and regular basis, different producers that are effectively market proven products that have a track record and a history of success in the recreational and medical markets of Canada.
And Kieran, if I could just add one last little thing, just because we're talking about products and categories and what we might be bringing, we'll cover every category from value. So we break them into 4: value, core, premium, craft. Top end craft is 2,000 square foot room or less, indoor grown, full on BC bud, legacy product, can't get better. And value is popcorn buds, very consistent, amazing, but you're going to see that duration, efficacy are going to drop as you go further down the scale. But the price will drop also. We're going to add vapes behind each one of those, so that you are in a category where you can, if you're using a Pure Sunfarms product, for example, you can then use a Pure Sunfarms vapes that's tied up to the genetics, and we'll do that in every category as well. And then we have a spray product coming that comes from a company in Denmark, the only one we're using outside the country. It's early onset. These guys are great scientists, very difficult to deal with, but we're getting there. We should have their product in the next couple months. So I just wanted to say that there are some other things that are coming as well that line up with those products and line up with the price points as well.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you. No, I as a patient always appreciate when there's more choice variety for us. So I'm going to bounce back over to Volteface. So this again is a bit more of a juicy political question again. So it's open to the two of you. In 2022, Jay Jackson from Volteface asked Wes Streeting, Labour Shadow Secretary of State for Health and Social Care, if Labour would take a more health-based approach to drugs, specifically noting further access to medical cannabis. Mr. Streeting doesn't answer the question for the most part, but instead focuses on drug gangs and violent crime, worryingly stating the war on drugs has not yet begun. He does not respond in regards to medical cannabis. If Labour wins the next general election, do you believe they will bring greater access to medical cannabis? Who wants to jump in?
That's a great question.
Yes.
Katya, I don't mind. Yep.
I don't mind. We can kind of answer it together. Yeah, I love the specificity of these questions. You guys have really done your research. Yeah, I mean that clip, I remember it went viral. I think Politics Joe reposted it. Yeah, I mean it was quite a disappointing answer Wes Streeting gave, but also one that I think is not necessarily that surprising. I don't know. I think we have to take that kind of clip with a bit of pinch of salt, because politicians are notorious for not really knowing a great deal on the spot and kind of sometimes blagging their way through things. So I think it was probably, I remember it was an event that wasn't to do with medical cannabis access whatsoever. So it was quite an out of the blue question. So I imagine Wes Streeting kind of just went to his nearest island of safety and was like, drugs are bad, we can talk about this, protect communities, go against crime, war on drugs hasn't started. So I think it was probably just a bit of a defense mechanism reaction. And I'm not sure it's necessarily how Labour feels about medical cannabis access more broadly. But yeah, with that said, I think that Labour's probably quite a good bet in terms of broadening out medical cannabis access. We know that before the election, no one really wants to touch and talk about cannabis. Everyone's quite focused on getting as many votes as possible. And Keir Starmer has definitely kind of put his foot down and told every MP to kind of shut their mouth when it comes to drugs and cannabis. So it's difficult to tell what their policies will be like once / if they get into power. But my guess is that they would be quite supportive of medical cannabis access more widely, but veering kind of away from any kind of recreational mentions. I think it really depends on like how cannabis access is framed and packaged for them to kind of get behind it.
We
Paul,
really
is there anything
wanted-
else you?
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, that's great, mate. We really wanted the Tories to push it harder because I can see, I mean, it's very, very likely Labour are going to get in. I think most people have, even the Tories, I think, have kind of resided on the fact that it's likely going to be a Labour government. The issue with Labour pushing the issue forward publicly is the Tories will then rally against it, because politics is no longer a game of ideology. It's a game of winning votes and winning ground. And when that's the game, it matters less what the politician thinks and believes, and matters more what the politician needs to say and do. So
To get votes.
Stammer is not an ally. He's not a friend of cannabis reform. And Katya and I have spoken to, we know some of his staff, we've known him for a while, and spoke to him early last year, and they were like, it's not a thing that Stammer's particularly happy about. He's fairly conservative when it comes to cannabis, full stop. But there are loads of allies in the Labour government, and if you look at the politicians that have been lobbied by the industry, particularly us, over the past 7 years, a lot of them are Labour politicians. Stammer has just whipped so hard against them speaking about it. Like you can find a BBC documentary of me taking David Lammy to Canada and showing him a legal weed market. And like, there is footage of David Lammy saying to a journalist, I think we should legalize cannabis for use. Like it's on video. Find it on YouTube. And like,
he's not allowed to say anything anymore.
Literally took him around all these grows for like a week. And he's incredibly influential in Labour government. And, from meeting and getting to know David, it's something that he cares about and values. But they're also politicians, and they have to be very careful about the game that they're playing. And there are many politicians who truly believe that we should change our medical cannabis laws, but they know that they're playing a game and they have to win votes and they have to protect their seats. And unfortunately, convincing a politician to engage on an issue is never enough anymore. You have to convince a politician to engage on an issue and then evidence to them that doing so would be a good thing for the party. That's very, 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 very difficult on cannabis because of the broader stigma that exists, as Greg mentioned, socially in the UK. It's very, very difficult grounds to engage on. I think Labour I agree completely with what Katya said. My fear is that if Labour go too public on this, the Tories will rally hard against it and they'll whip up all that kind of venom that exists in the media around the subject, and that could cause a pushback, which is why I believe the most effective political and lobbying interventions are ones that are done carefully in a considered way that don't stress politicians out. And as much as 2018 was a landmark moment and the law changed, but we won't get another 2018. So I think this tension point exists between campaigners that are looking at the issue and being like, we really need to raise awareness of this, we need to get out there and make a statement, versus people working behind the scenes who know that vocal let's push it. A lot of politicians don't want to do that. They'll support something in a way that is lower risk. And I'm not saying that's a decision that I'm happy with or I'd support that kind of politicizing, but unfortunately we can only work with the tools that we're given, and the tools that we're given are
very chaotic politicians that are difficult to engage.
Yeah, they're just a nightmare group. They're very difficult people.
Yeah, but yeah, I think we will get there. But I would say that before the general election, I don't think we can really expect any meaningful engagement on it. Also, it's so difficult because they keep reshuffling the cabinet. So you get to a point where you're actually engaging with a minister, and then they just reshuffle and engage someone else. So
it's mad.
I feel like until it's
we've had like round tables or stuff planned. We're like, great, we've got this person around the table. Oh no, new person, got rid of them. It's just this endless cycle. One thing that people can do though that is really effective is write letters to your MP. So the way to get an MP to engage at a constituent level is to write positively and kindly to an MP. And don't just write a letter and leave it with them. Request a meeting. I want to meet. I'm a constituent. I want to speak to you about this issue. When are you next doing a drop-in? I want to talk to you about this. I want you to engage in it. Katya and I have seen in our APPG politicians engage with the subject because they've had
because they've
letters from
because they have
family.
constituents, or that they've got a constituent that has a child with epilepsy that benefits from cannabis, or they're a patient themselves. So that those kind of stories actually do really help. So yeah, if there's any patients here that would like to write to their MPs, you're more than welcome to get in touch with us, and we'd be happy to help draft letters. You can kind of mention the APPG, request the MP to attend the next APPG meeting. We can speak to them. But yeah, politics is messy, but hopefully we'll have some better news once there's a general election.
That's
So
great. No, sorry,
can
go
I just
on.
add one comment again, Kieran, about GPs prescribing? That's what it's all about, right? Is increasing that access. And then by increasing access, we lower the cost. By lowering the cost, we increase the number of patients. The more patients that we get into the marketplace, the more conservative people who live in rural areas who have always thought poorly towards cannabis as a substance get exposed to its positive benefits to their friends and family's life. Then we slowly climb up the ladder towards full legal recreational at some point in the future. But the first, from my point of view, to break the barriers down, we can make small regulatory changes that can make big differences. Little things like being able to ship scripts electronically as rather than having them mailed, having GPs being able to prescribe, reducing the time period between forced visits with a specialist so nurses can re-prescribe rather than having to have specialists re-prescribe, so that we can keep lowering the price and cost of access. Will eventually increase more patients, more awareness, more destigmatization, and hopefully leading to the land of, at some point, I don't know when, my guess is 7 to 10 years, but for legal recreational. I don't know what Paul and Katya's thoughts are, but somewhere in that zone.
Just muted and then unmute myself. I think Germany will help. Like, one thing that I saw being an effective intervention was taking politicians to a market which was legal. Like, taking politicians to Canada was an incredibly effective intervention, and those politicians were really ambivalent. Went there, came back really supportive. Canada's obviously a trek, and it's hard getting those sort of things funded. If we, I mean, I did a podcast with Alfredo the other day talking about, is Germany going to go legal, and it's really got me down a bit around what we might actually see out of Germany. I think we're going to get the first pillar, the first phase. The second phase of full-blown adult legalization, I think, is on incredibly rocky ground. Well, it might not even happen. Like, the government that are in Germany at the moment are in such a precarious position. And again, because politics is now a game and it's not an ideological game, it's a vote-winning game. Germany might not become what we want it to be. But however, further reform in Europe will mean we can take politicians there and show them it, and showing them it firsthand. Documentary makers then bringing that back to people in the UK and showing them what it's like is a really powerful intervention. Can I just answer a question that pops up super quickly that I can see in the chat? Would Paul or Katya back patient cannabis safe spaces, meeting places? Because it's a really easy answer. Yeah, massively. Yeah, big time. Katya and I support all the sensible evidence-based recommendations around cannabis, which would include cannabis safe spaces, meeting places, decriminalization, homegrown. Like, we are very sensible when it comes to this. I think legalization, regulation shouldn't just be about one particular aspect. It should be all encompassing, and it should take all people in society into account, which is why I think homegrown is a great idea, but not just on its own. It needs to be alongside access for people who don't want to grow at home, or maybe are able to grow at home, or don't understand how to grow at home. So I think that we're
just going to butt in then. I think, isn't Councillor Andrew Walters, who we've spoken to him on the Discord. Do you know of him? His plight with Salford Council. I know he's trying to promote that at the moment. We've given him a space in the Discord because I would personally, we would really like to back that one as well. Because I mean, I'm in Greater Manchester, so Salford's not far from me.
Yeah, it's a great intervention. It would be really good to see more of that in the UK, because although that's kind of a small battle that's taking place at a very localized level, what that does is people see, it's like, I think sometimes just you get little wins by people just seeing a conversation taking place. So there'll be a number of politicians who'll have seen that taking place, and whether they subconsciously recognize it or not, that will have nudged them a little bit further along of like, oh, right, okay, there's an important conversation to be had there. So those kind of interventions are really, really important. And I wish there were more councillors who engage with issues like this and kind of put the neck out there. And that's always the issue with it. It often becomes a case of, because of the stigma associated with cannabis, is this individual brave enough to engage with it? Is this individual got the guts and the bravery to say, I support this issue, and put themselves out there in a world where once you say that, it's out there forever?
You can't go back.
That's a more modern issue, isn't it, around engage with the issue? But yeah, really respect the
Yeah, and I think there's so much power in like local councils and local governments when it comes to drug policy reform. You see it with like diversion schemes and police and crime commissioners not really, focusing their efforts away from policing cannabis to, crimes that are way more important. So I think we're going to, we're starting to see that more and more. And I think while parliamentary affairs are a bit chaotic and trying to stay away from cannabis, I think local governments can do a lot. So I think it's important not to kind of underestimate that.
Brilliant. I love everyone, adding to this, and I love the conversation we've got going. I just want to remind everyone we've hit the first hour, and we've got about 4 more prepared questions that I'm going to try and get through so that Sky can have a chance to ask some of the questions that we've had in the Q&A section. So I think this will be for James and Gregory. So the patient asks, will any more discounts be coming for patients buying 30 grams or more of one brand? Or do you believe, again, if it's not applicable to you, or it's not?
Yeah, we do our best to get the prices to the lowest price we can while not going bankrupt, and that's the best we can do.
Okay, that's real.
And
okay.
I think the new pricing that you guys will see, not talking about products or pricing again, but I think the new pricing that you'll see with the products that are there, it will be very hard to find something that's as good as that for that price.
Okay, yeah, and we're also engaged with Project 20.
I'm going to stop talking now.
Just stop talking, please. It would be better. Project 2021 has different pricing as well, of course, because there's discounts there. And I think when the formulary comes up, people might be surprised at some of the pricing on it. So,
okay. All right, thank you. So the next one we've got is the patient asks, what is your policy for returning unopened products?
We're not in the business of selling the product. We sell it to a pharmacy, and then the pharmacy sells it to the patient.
I know that, just to point out, we've had some issues with patients being able to send back some pots like that, and in some instances we've had to get in touch with the growers to go past the pharmacy because the pharmacy weren't allowing us to return that. Is that
Green
right?
Carrot,
Sarah?
I think that was, yeah. We had some problems with the Green Parrot. What was it? Green Carrot.
Green Carrot.
Yeah, I can't mention the actual name of it, I don't think, but there were seeds in it. So one of the patients went direct. Well, they went to the pharmacy and they was told basically to pick the seeds out, which wasn't great. So then he went direct to the manufacturer, and they have agreed to replace it at their end. I don't know how they're going to do that, but they've said it's not good enough and they want to replace it.
So if there's fault in the product, whether it has mold or seed, that would qualify it for a return, and we would honor, we have standards and they have to be met. And if they're not, then they're not. But if a patient is returning, let's be honest, if patients return product without any justification or cause, it's difficult for us to do that because it's a very slippery slope to bankruptcy.
Okay, brilliant. All right, so we've got one last one for you guys, James and Gregory. I've had to reword this one a little bit, so apologies. So it seems that some medical cannabis products are moving away from, I think some of this has been answered in the past, but they've got a little extra question to it. So it seems that some medical cannabis products are moving away from plastic pots to zip foil bags. The patient has said the reason for this is because the seals of the pot would burn and leak carcinogens and all sorts of nastiness into the cannabis, then smelled like chemicals and was harsh to consume, as well as reports of this causing respiratory illness in patient. The patient asks, do you believe a review should be done into the potential harm caused and people who are exposed compensated for the risks to their health from these products?
I would say the following. I think that we have pharmaceutical standards that exist in the United Kingdom. And as mentioned earlier, you have government regulation and then you have government enforcement. We've only just seen the MHRA add specific GMP inspectors to the file who now ask questions like, is this product a GACP input? Is the GMP process being followed? Is the stability process being followed? But that extends to, coming to my point, that extends to containers. The containers that we use are pharmaceutically graded containers. If you get your, they call it Advil in Canada, what is it, headache tablets in the UK, and they come in a plastic container, that container cannot leach material into the product that's within the container. It's been tested 9 ways to July to make sure that that doesn't happen. So we only carry those types of products, but James and I cannot speak to companies that carry other products. I think what I could say, like you'd alluded to, we've answered some of the questions before, we are pushing to go towards a recyclable bag that you can then take and put in your compost and compost. That's the direction we're going in. It's just going to take us a minute to get there, but we are going into bags because that allows us to get our stability lined up with bags, and then we want to transition into bags that are recyclable.
Okay, all right, thank you for answering that. So Katya, I hope I'm going to get these titles right. So Katya holds a BSc in psychology and an MSc in health psychology from the University of Bath. Psychology is the study of the mind and behavior. Volteface means a total change of position, as in policy or opinion, and about face. What do you believe it will take for a change in the minds, opinions, and behaviors of the UK public on cannabis as a drug as a whole?
Excellent question. Yeah, I think just general normalization and breaking down stigma. I think there's the UK and British people generally, I think there's a deeply entrenched stigma when it comes to cannabis that we don't really see in other countries. I think in the US and in Canada and other places across Europe, cannabis use has become more normalized, and I think stigma's kind of rapidly decreased with changing legislations. Whereas I think the UK, there's something about cannabis that is just really, really difficult to get through. There's a lot of stigma associated with the smell, which you don't really see anywhere else in the world as well. Like the amount of complain about the smell online. So I think the kind of key way to bring the British public up to speed and typical social conservatives to get on board with cannabis is to present it in a way that seems quite different to how they perceive it to be now. So presenting it as a as a meaningful medicine that can really change people's lives. I think that the development of kind of innovative technologies and delivery mechanisms of cannabis, making it feel more and more like any other kind of mainstream medicine prescribed, I think that will help a lot. And I think just more people, using cannabis and speaking about their experiences with cannabis, more patients, talking about their experiences and the fact that they use cannabis, because I think a lot of the British public, I guess the cohort that we're talking about, thinks it's a recreational dirty drug that teenagers smoke in parks and then get psychosis from. I think there's this really, really strong stigma that's just attached to that. And I think if those people could learn and hear about the stories that patients experience and how cannabis has completely changed their lives, that attitude and stigma would change. So I think it really just comes down to awareness and just reshaping and rethinking, what cannabis kind of looks like. And that's, I guess, with the name Volteface, that's a lot of the work that we've tried to do over the years as well, is figuring out that a lot of the kind of left wing liberal arguments that people engage with cannabis, those arguments haven't really stuck very well in the UK, or it has stuck with people that are just traditionally left-leaning and liberal. When they hear arguments about cannabis and the kind of human rights argument around it, they're super pro and get on board. But the kind of social conservative group is very, very difficult to penetrate with that. So you have to kind of rethink the arguments that you put forward and just start speaking their language so that they can get on board with it. Okay. Paul, I don't know if there's anything else that you would like to add.
No, nothing to add there.
I was just going to jump in at the end before I pass back. Sorry, Kieran, I was just going to jump in and say about the patient, because it just kind of goes back a bit to that patient campaign that we're doing. And I've told my story on there as well, because I always tell my story when I go to the doctors or anything, because cannabis I was on 50 milligrams of diazepam a day, and I was also drinking probably about 2 liters of vodka a day. And because of cannabis, I don't need any of that anymore. And I've been sober now for over 8 years. And that is the story I tell people, that without cannabis, I would be dead. It's the short and thingy of it is that, and that's what I think we just need to get out, that it's not recreational for us. You know, I need it to stay alive, basically. But sorry, Kieran.
Yeah.
No, it's
Yeah,
no, I appreciate it. I wouldn't be on this call if it wasn't for my medical cannabis. Sorry, just to keep moving it along. Before I do hand it over to Sky, Katya, Paul, I do know you wanted to share something about the patients first research. Do you want to go ahead and share something with us?
Yeah, so I was gonna put a link into chat, but I think I can only send messages to the host and to panelists. But I was just gonna send a link to the database. So if patients
I can
are
copy that.
interested. Oh, amazing, thank you. I wasn't sure if I was just being completely stupid, but I think I can only send it to panelists. Yeah, so we've got this database that we've been built. We started it about 2 years ago, Paul, and the kind of purpose of it was really to allow patients to actively contribute to research and work that the industry's doing. We saw kind of a major gap between the industry trying to understand the patient experience and patients feeling like the industry doesn't understand their experiences and their barriers. So we've created this initiative called Patients First. We've run a bunch of market research, focus groups, surveys, and research projects with clients and companies that are looking to understand a whole range of things around the patient experience. So if you're interested in contributing, if you're interested in taking part in research as it becomes available, please do sign up. I'm sure that some of the patients on the call have already signed up to the database, but yeah, if you haven't, then please do, and we'll get in touch when opportunities arise.
Just to add, we pay people, obviously.
We pay people.
We pay people for all the
So-
time that you put into it. And like for a focus group, it's like a minimum of like 50 quid for doing a focus group. And we only use the data to contact you about opportunities for that. There's no, your data.
Yeah, you won't be getting any emails from us randomly. It's about if there's an opportunity to participate in a focus group or any research related activity that you'll get paid for, you'll get in touch through that.
And you don't even have to sign up if you're worried about that. You don't even have to sign up with like your full details. We just need some really basic information around you.
Yeah, you can use a pseudonym. You don't have to use your real name. We just need some kind of either phone number or email address so that we can contact you.
Okay, no, that's brilliant to hear. I always love to hear research that's going on. I know that I benefit from the T21 project myself. So to give myself a little bit of a break before I come back at the end, we're now going to open the floor to questions we've had from the Q&A section of this webinar. Sky from the channel Cannabis is Medicine UK will be taking over as host, and Emma will be unmuting attendees who have had their hands up once the questions have been called. Just a reminder, keep all questions respectful and under 2 minutes long. If your hand isn't raised, Sky will be asking these directly herself for you. Okay, over to Sky.
I think I told Sarah I meant to jump off at
You do, yes. Sorry.
I have to go, but I really appreciate everyone's attention, time, and questions, and the work you're doing is awesome. So any way we can support you, let us know. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay. All right, Sky.
Hi everyone, hiya. So we've got a few questions in the chat. There was one for T-God, but he's shut off, so we can email him and get that one at a later date. That was from Kirat. But so the first question is from Jamie Jackson, and it's: if you need to irradiate due to UK legislation, then why can the producers bring out strains that don't irradiate? So that's open to anyone who wants to answer.
Go ahead, James.
Yeah, so we're not in control of the labs and the labs that do work. So there are products that are, from what I understand, not irradiated. And irradiation is a word that encompasses a lot of different things. There's many different types of sterilization. So I'm not privy to that growing environment. I'm not privy to those COAs. All I can tell you is our experience after I've looked at 50 facilities, or somewhere between 40 and 50 facilities. I've only seen one producer be able to produce off of the shelf a level of microbes in the plant that meets the UK standards. That's just what I have seen. I'm not saying that they're not doing it correctly or they're cheating. I just haven't seen it. I've only seen one producer do it, and that facility doesn't allow anybody into it that doesn't work there. You have to basically have a hydrochloric acid shower before you go into it. You're wearing completely jumpers. Like I wasn't allowed in the facility because nobody is unless they work in the facility. It is, I've seen videos of it and I've seen photos of it. It is effectively a lab. And I have other producers that have very much lab-like conditions, but I don't understand it, but I suppose it must be true because that's what the computer says. So I don't really know how to respond to that question other than those statements.
Okay, thank you. Greg, have you got anything to add, or
Yeah,
Greg or Gregory? So
you can call me either one, Greg or Gregory. Dobbin. People also call me Dobbin a lot. We used to play a lot of rugby when I was younger. I was called Dobbin more than I was called anything else. I think what it comes down to is that this is what James said. We've been to a lot of facilities, and you have to have your products tested by a third-party lab. That's the letter of the law. I don't think everybody necessarily does that. The lab has to be arm's length, and it has to be full EU GMP certified. It has to be inspected regularly by the correct EU GMP inspector, not someone that has a license that they got in a Cracker Jack box. And of all the facilities we've seen, we've only just now seen one that can do it, but their growing methodology and the way they do things is very expensive, but they are able to hit the microbe limits and not have to irradiate. But they are the only ones, and they still don't have their GMP yet. So we're working with them to try and bring their product into the UK. And the moment we can, we will definitely do it, but it will likely sit alongside other products that are irradiated because it's not possible in our minds to produce a product that doesn't require radiation, unfortunately.
we've got another question on irradiation, which is quite similar by S. Do you think we'll see less irradiated strains soon in the UK medical cannabis market when they are inspected? And why haven't inspections happened before now?
Well, I think we've lobbied pretty hard at the MHRA level to make sure that the playing field is level. And right now it's definitively not level. However, we know that from our we've put in every time you want to bring a product into the UK, you have to go through the MHRA and you have to submit the labels, the product claim, the label claim. You have to state exactly what the THC percentage is going to be because you can't drift more than plus or minus 10% from that. You also have to submit all of the provenance. So GACP certificates, GMP certificates, all the stability data, as well as be able to back all of that up when they come to inspect you. I think what's happening with the MHRA is they're so backlogged with these requests coming in that they're getting pushed through before the GMP inspectors really dig into them. But I think they also know in the back of their minds that they're the government. They are going to get to dig into them, and they're likely going to dig into them upon inspection. So our inspection date is likely in the middle of February. When the inspector comes and looks at all of our books and our facilities and all the GMP provenance, it will all pass with flying colors. I'm not sure what's going to happen with the other one. So to answer the question, I think it's likely the fact that there's a lag between regulation and enforcement, but that enforcement will likely come. And when it does, you're just going to see that you might see that some of the products that are currently in the market that are non-irradiated or do not have the GMP done correctly might not be there until they can fix those problems. Hopefully that answers the question.
Yeah, thank you. So we've got a question from DM. Why are we importing so much when we could grow it in the UK now?
I would say we have a cultivation license in Guernsey. We would love to stand up that facility and run it. The issue that we have in the UK specifically is your power cost is astronomical, and there are no import barriers to import products. So if you can get a product from Canada and their costs are X, and you try to do the same thing in the UK, you're going to be paying 4 times as much for your product on the ground.
Yeah, I think that we'll see product from the UK. I mean, I lived in Guernsey during COVID and spend much of my time there. And nothing I would like more than to bring over my breeder who's been serving cancer patients for almost 30 years successfully at the British Columbia Compassion Club, the longest running compassion club in North America. He has genetics that are unparalleled, but the challenge is cost of power. And the reality is that as the UK market's growing right now, there's virtually no appetite for investors to invest in medical cannabis cultivation. It's very, very, very hard to find the funds. And you may or may not know this, and the people on this call should know this, is that the British government is now enforcing its cannabis cultivation regulations so that you cannot get a license until you have stood up the facility, got it operational, and then they will only come and inspect you. Now that is somewhere between a 10 and 20 million pound bet that you're making that the Home Office will approve you. So that it makes it even more challenging. But I'm sure that we'll start to see some products come from the number of companies that have licenses.
Yeah, I was just going to butt in.
It's an
Sorry.
plan, isn't it, to start up a company?
Yeah, I was just going to say, yeah, I think we're starting to see some of the UK cultivators kind of slowly come online. I know that loads have been kind of finalizing the facilities, but yeah, it's a long game. So I envision that we'll kind of start seeing products come to market in the next couple of years. But then, cost will be another issue that a lot of these cultivators, I think, will face around matching it so that patients can afford it, clinics are able to stock it. But I think, yeah, UK cultivation will come soon.
Good. I think UK medical cannabis patients are desperate for freshness. And I think, the idea of growing in the UK just sounds like we'd have fresher meds, which would be good.
Yeah, I think the thing that I would add on the fresh side is that, for example, if you follow the correct path when you are taking a GMP product down, we apply for our import permit for products that come from outside the UK a month before we receive the permission to do it. In the meantime, the product has to go directly from harvest to dry to packaging. And we time that out so that by the time it's packaged, it gets sent out for its final COA. When that COA comes back, we have the export permit. From then, that's the first time that product's allowed to move, whether it's in the UK or anywhere else in the world. And from that moment, it takes 24 hours to clear UK customs and it's available in the market. So that's the only lag difference between us and the UK is a 24-hour difference in the flight time and clearing customs. Otherwise, it's the same. I would say we have an amazing facility in Guernsey that we would love to start tomorrow morning. It would likely produce top-end craft product. There's a market for it. We are completely set, all plans done, everything done. And if anyone wants to hand us 14 million pounds, we'll press the trigger on it tomorrow morning.
Oh my goodness.
I think we could do it for 8, but we'll argue about that.
We could probably do it for 8.
Yes.
Sorry, go for it.
I was just going to say, Sky, the reality is as we start to roll forward and as an organization and we get through some of our teething pains, which every new organization is going to have, and which we are, the reality is many of the producers that we'll be bringing into the country the UK patients will be getting much fresher product than the Canadian consumer will, because of the nature of how it works in Canada is even more backwards. Unfortunately, while Canada has legalized recreational cannabis, they have hobbled the industry with atrociously bad regulations. And you can get a craft producer who's producing the best flower in the world. He'll sell it to the British Columbia government. The British Columbia government will stick it into storage for 6 months and then ship it off to a shop, depending on what they think it should be done. Whereas Kieran could be getting it literally within 3 weeks of its harvest, right? And 3 weeks of proper curing and packaging. So that is kind of the reality is that and well-cured cannabis should be able to last for a long time, like a long time.
Okay, thank you, guys. So we've just got a question from Angie to Katya. What does the acronym APPG stand for?
Yeah, I think I answered this in the chat, but just so everyone can hear. So it stands for All Party Parliamentary Group. It's quite a mouthful. And so Paul and myself and the Medical Cannabis Clinicians Society, we're the secretariat for the All Party Parliamentary Group for medical cannabis. They're basically like extracurricular activities for MPs. So if an MP is really interested and passionate about a subject, they can put together an APPG, and then other MPs that are interested can attend those meetings and produce reports, do presentations, hold meetings and events. So yeah, it's basically like little clubs and societies for MPs.
Thank you. We've got a question from Bubs. How can patients contact Paul and Katya? Do you have
Yeah, so you can send us both emails. My email is Katya@volteface.me, and Paul's is paul@volteface.me. I think I popped them in the Q&A as well. But yeah, you guys, you're more than welcome to drop us an email on that. We're also.
Can you repeat Paul's email as well, so I can get that down quickly?
Yeah, so it's just Paul, Paul @volteface.me. So yeah, exactly the same, just your names.
Thank you, thank you. We've got a question from someone here. I'm a medical cannabis patient, a GP, and a cannabis clinician. I see patients every day in general practice that would benefit from medical cannabis, but I struggle to envision how GPs can take over prescribing with the current classification as an unlicensed medicine. How would you envisage changing how medical cannabis is prescribed in the UK? And that's to anyone, actually.
Well,
I'll let James take it because he looks
I
very
literally
eager.
invented a campaign along with Dr. Aurora, who didn't believe me at first, after much convincing, agreed that general practitioners who can prescribe a whole slew of different drugs that can kill you, or maybe help you, should be qualified after their 55 years of study and practice to be able to treat people with medical cannabis. So what are the mechanics around this? We've had lawyers look at this backwards and forwards. It is effectively all we need to do is get the Home Secretary to sign off on adding these words and general practitioners after the words specialist doctors to the regulations that have made medical cannabis legal, and we have GPs being able to prescribe. The other way to do it, and the doctor is completely correct when they say that unlicensed medicines are restricted to specialists, is that there is a movement afoot inside of the General College of General Practitioners, or the General Practitioners College, to have themselves qualified as specialists, because being a general practitioner unto itself is a specialty. Being able to, that is what their argument is. And so if that is the case, then they would then be qualified to prescribe unlicensed medicines like medical cannabis. So we think that we believe that under the previous Home Secretary, Cruella Braverman, there was little to no chance of it. We are now far too close to the election with a new Home Secretary that's too busy with putting people into boats and sending them to Africa to really think about this. So we would like to think that in the future, the next government will look at the crime and safety benefits. This is all about crime reduction, harm reduction, lowering costs for patients, increasing access points, reducing stigmatization, and growing the market, and taking away money that medical cannabis patients are giving to illicit cannabis distributors, and getting them to come into the ethical, the stable, the safe, the legal, and hopefully the more affordable world of medical cannabis. That's what our goal is. That's what I think most people in the industry's goal is. And there are steps that we can take. And if you look at I spent a lot of time studying stats. If you look at the various jurisdictions around the world that have gone through the medical cannabis journey, you will see that it almost always starts with specialist doctors under a very reduced number of conditions. And as the years pass and destigmatization occurs, those rules change. Australia is the most recent example of this. The numbers go through the roof as soon as GPs can prescribe. Israel is going through a similar process right now, taking it from a secondary or tertiary form of medicine to a frontline medicine. And the people I talk to in Israel expect the numbers to double or triple in the next 18 months when this becomes a frontline medicine rather than a medicine of last resort.
And I just wanted to butt in quickly because I know Katya's got to go, so I don't want to. If you need to go, please pop up.
Yeah, I was just about to butt in and say that I'm going to have to hop off, but yeah, thank you so much for having me on. It's been such a pleasure chatting to you all. And yeah, Emma's put our emails in the chat, so do feel free to get in touch. Happy to answer any questions. Happy to come on again. But yeah, have a lovely evening, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming, Katya. Thank you for the work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay.
So we've got a question from an anonymous attendee. How are you able to apply for an export permit without the final COA? I don't know what that stands for. Sorry. What does COA stand for?
Certificate of analysis.
Yeah, certificate of analysis.
And then
So-
and I said that doesn't sound right.
Yeah, so basically, you obtain your clinic. So the process, if you want to, so first off, if we could produce all our product in the UK, we would do it in a heartbeat. Just want to make sure that that's clear. So second thing, the process. When you want to bring medical cannabis into the country, the rules have changed a little, right? Originally, it was by prescription. Now you can bring in medical cannabis for a period of up to 3 months based on the medical need of a patient or a group of patients. So what we do is we take a COA that is a representative GMP COA, and we take that to doctors. So let's say we're only importing one thing. Let's say we're just importing one type of flower and one genetic. We get the COA for that. It goes to the doctor at the clinic, the head doctor. Doctor speaks to their internal team. They say, okay, we would like to allocate, let's say, 100 patients to this new type of product. They sign the form. These forms can be done in many different ways. We have a standardized form that we've gone through with the MHRA, which is their preference. Some people just write a letter. I think that this patient needs this much product, and therefore I want to order 20 grams. Produces a lot of extra work for the MHRA, so we do it in a standardized form, and then we send them a spreadsheet. So off the back of that, the MHRA issues a LONO, which is a letter of no objection. When you receive the letter of no objection, which takes between 2 weeks and a month, closer to a month generally than 2 weeks, when you receive that, you then take the LONO and you submit it to the Home Office. Once that is submitted to the Home Office and the Home Office approves, which takes between 48 hours and a week, depending on who's walking their dog and who's excited about their job that week. Once we have that, we then send that paperwork, which is the import paperwork, to Canada or to any country that's exporting. That local organization then takes that import authorization, puts it into their own network. So in Canada, for example, it goes into Health Canada. Health Canada takes between 2 weeks and a month to approve a product for export, and then you can export it. In the meantime, in the background of all this, you're growing your crop, you're cutting it down, you're drying it for 21 days, and you're timing it out so that when you send the application into Health Canada, that you're sending in an application with the new COA on it. And once that new COA goes in there, then they issue the export permit and you can export that batch. So that's the process we have to go through. So you can take care of all of the stuff on the UK side up until you need to apply for an export permit from a place like Canada. And then you have to have the COA from the batch that you've harvested.
And just to add another technical note to that, the COAs that we get, they have to conform to the label claims that we have, and they have to be stable. So the COA that would come from the original way to get the letter of no objection and to get the letters of need, it has to be the same result after the harvest. It gets retested before it's sent to the UK, and it's got to sync up with inside of the 10% up or down variance on cannabinoids. So that way everything is what you're talking to the doctors about is what they're getting to the patients when you send it to them, is effectively what happens. I hope that's a sufficient answer for anonymous, whoever they may be.
Thank you. We've got one final question from Bubs. What can the UK learn from Canada's medical market, and what would you like to see or not see brought here?
Well, I spend a great deal of time thinking about all of this, and I think a lot about regulations, which is why I wanted to get involved with the Cannabis Industry Council. And I think Canada was very brave in a lot of its things that they've done, but the failure was politics has created compromises, and then it's sort of like okay, we've done this and let's just move on and forget about making it better, which is sad because many Canadian companies are going out of business. There's people losing jobs every day, and many investors have lost fortunes. But the main thing that I would suggest that I would like to see the UK do is I'd really like to see greater access via GPs prescribing. I'd like to see studies getting done. I'd like to see a robust, there's a big difference between the medical and the two markets of the UK and Canada. As Greg alluded to, power costs in Canada are very low. In case nobody knows, it's a giant freaking country. It's massive. There's all kinds of places to grow cannabis illegally. And cannabis in Canada has always been either very low priced because it was grown outside, or very reasonably priced because it was grown indoors under very low cost energy conditions in areas where illicit cannabis is dramatically less expensive than even legal cannabis is still today. Whereas that's not quite the situation here because of the high cost of incarceration, the high cost of operation, the ease of getting caught for an illicit cannabis. If you flew a bunch of heat-seeking drones over Coventry right now, you could pick off half of the grow sites in the country. So what we would like to see is we'd like to see a controlled market where high quality products are affordable, right? And so I think that that's the key part is keeping away from excessive taxes, keeping away from excessive red tape, allowing industry to operate with some level of profit so that we don't all go bankrupt, burdened by excessive regulations. And I think that they have got it kind of right now. Other than GPs being able to prescribe, the regulations in this country are very generous. They're some of the most generous in the world. You can effectively get a prescription for pretty much anything that is ailing you and other drugs have not proven effective, which is not the case around most of the world. There's usually greater restrictions. Now, Germany, Australia, Israel, they also have similar set of regulations, with the exceptions that the GPs are allowed to prescribe. We see 330,000 patients in Australia. We see 130 in Israel, population 8 million. And we see somewhere in the neighborhood of 200 to 350. It's just difficult to get exact answers on Germany. And those numbers are growing daily. So I think if we want to see a successful UK industry, we need to, make it more affordable for industry to be able to survive this, what is really a very challenging industry, to be perfectly frank.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I think I would add one little thing to that, and that would be that in Canada, the one thing they did not do well is they didn't roll out the program to doctors. There was no government program that said, as a doctor, you can prescribe this instead of an opioid. As a doctor, you can be confident that you could prescribe cannabis instead of a sleeping aid like a benzodiazepine. They didn't do it. They just kind of put the regulation in place, knowing that they were going to go towards rec, and they spent no time on the medical side, which is a shame because there was a lot of capital invested in Canada, and not one of those Canadian companies took even 1 second to think about the patients. All they thought about was how much money they could make, how big a facility they could build, how much product they could pump out at the lowest price, and nobody paid any attention to the people they should have been paying attention to, which are patients. If you look at the United Kingdom, there's a stat on Google that the UK has the highest usage of opioids for pain per capita of any country on the planet, right? As Canada and the US doctors have stepped back as they've been getting sued for prescribing opioids, the UK has been left being conservative, but still now prescribing more on average than anyone else. We know from looking at studies that have been done by Project 2021 and drug science that there is empirical evidence, not just in the study that they published, but in other studies published in Australia, the US, and Canada, that cannabis can be used as a way to either reduce or eliminate the use of opioids as a frontline treatment for pain. So those are the types of things that the government needs to pay attention to and latch onto. Do you really want to addict 350,000 to 1 million people in the UK on benzodiazepines when they could just be taking medical cannabis? You don't want to do that, but it takes them a minute to figure it out. And I think that when you look at Canada, 2014 was when medical legal kind of came in. My mommy, who's 84, and uses a spray bottle of medical cannabis to help her sleep at night. And she switched, she did all this on her own, had nothing to do with me. She started with oil, then she switched to a spray. She said, I like the idea of the spray because the onset's faster, so I can still read my book as long as I want to, and then take a spray, and 20 minutes later, I go to bed. It completely fixed a 30-year problem she had with not being able to sleep and waking up somewhere between 3 and 5 in the morning and never going back to sleep again. And she's a changed person because of it. She was already sharp before. Now she's sharp as a tack. I think the New York Times puzzle, the Wordle game, she has got it in 46 times. Now she has a lot of time on her hands because she's 84, but that's kind of ridiculous. She never would have figured that out before. So I think it's awareness, education of doctors, destigmatization, and relying on the fact that there is now empirical medical research that shows efficacy of cannabis for conditions that are now being treated with products that are addictive and not good for you. So I think that would be the biggest thing the UK could do to make it better for the people in the UK, as opposed to people just lining their pockets, thinking they can make lots of money at everyone else's expense, which is not what we're into.
I totally agree. It seems crazy that cannabis in the UK is seen as a last-ditch attempt after people have tried lots of opiates and different medications, when cannabis is so much less dangerous than a lot of pain medications and benzodiazepines and stuff. So I think attention definitely needs to shift so that cannabis is turned to before you know, sort of addictive medications like opiates. I mean, I, for one, I'm a pain patient, and I have decreased my morphine from 60 milligrams twice a day down to 5 milligrams. And
Yeah,
I've halved my
difference.
pregabalin, and I've come off my benzodiazepines for my mental health, and it's changed my life. And the insomnia thing as well. Like, it's such a powerful sleep medication, and it can be life-changing when you've not been able to sleep for years, and then suddenly you can sleep for 8 hours a night. It's amazing. It's definitely life-changing. I think the focus definitely needs to shift from it being a last-ditch medication.
Just to note, though, that is a guideline. That is actually not a regulation. That was a guideline imposed by NICE,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Because as we know, the regulations were rushed. The law was rushed. There was no structure around the regulations. So instead, the doctors went back to their royal societies and created a bunch of guidelines that have no bearing in reality. And now we have these assumptions that if you don't have these other drugs that you've taken, that the patient is not capable of getting a prescription. Let's be clear, those are guidelines, and doctors have discretion. And if doctors want to defend their patients' right to access medical cannabis outside of the guidelines, they can do that, right? That is within the realm of possibilities. And maybe that's slowly how things start to break down, is some doctors just say, you know what, I don't want my patient to have to go through an opioid process when they tell me that medical cannabis works for them and has for many years to manage these symptoms. And all it takes is one audit from the CQC to say, yeah, okay, you did your homework, you asked the right questions, you did the research. The patient said they didn't want to take these drugs that they know they've had problems with perhaps in the past, or they just don't even want to go near them for having potential the problems to create for themselves. And so a doctor takes a risk, gets audited, and clears the audit. Once that happens you'll start to see it happen more often.
Thank you. I feel like the information on the NHS website about cannabis is very outdated. I'd really like to see that reworded and updated. Definitely.
Like Paul said, write your MP.
Yeah. Thank you. I think that's all the questions. So if anybody wants to ask their questions live, just raise your hand.
Sorry, can I interrupt? There is still a question from English Rick.
Oh yeah, of course. Sorry. Let me have a look. Where is it?
Have you got it, Emma?
Yeah, have you got it, Emma? Can you read it out?
If you can't find it, I'm happy to. First question from English Rick. Is there a difference between R&D licenses for growing in the UK as opposed to production license?
Yes, very big difference. One is R&D means you can grow some plants and show that you're capable of doing it, and you're not allowed to commercially activate that opportunity. We have a commercial license. I don't know how many there are, but I think there's under 5. A commercial license allows you to engage in commercial activity and sales. So an R&D license is exactly what it says on the tin. It's for research and development only. It doesn't necessarily assure you of getting a commercial cultivation license at a later date. Just looking for 8 million quid if anyone's got it. Kieran, you good for 8 million?
I'll check down my sofa.
No, unfortunately.
Well, we're working on it, people. We're trying our best. And in the meantime, we'll just keep importing and distributing what we think is good value product.
Yeah, what about don't know. If English Rick wants to speak, put your hand up. If you don't. But that might be.
He didn't say. He said last night he wasn't going to. He didn't want to ask it himself. He would rather we did it. So unless he's one of my
No, I'm going to ask if he wanted to talk about his ideas and stuff like that, because literally, I think all he needs is money to. He's got the money. He just needs the resources. I think.
Yeah, the money. Someone's got money. I could use some money.
There it is. English Rick. Go on.
Hi. I don't want to take up too much of your time. I've just got a couple of questions that I wanted to write down, but I just didn't want to interrupt the conversation. I'm really sorry.
All right.
So anyways, one of the questions that I've got is medical vaporizers. Seems to be only a very few in the market. Is it such a big deal to get one approved?
Medically, you mean?
Yeah. I'm not, that's not my game, but getting anything approved for officially validated as a medically approved device takes lots of money, lots of time. I don't work for Stores and Bickle. I don't have any shares in their company. I know nothing about anyone who works for them, but I personally find that their products are the best for me. Where is it? Okay, here it is. I've been good boy. I haven't even used it.
It just seems very expensive, and I'm wondering if like there's a gap in the market for maybe a budget version or something that, you know, people can afford.
Yeah, well, the thing about the Mighty is people have been trying to imitate it for like I mean, I think I got my first one over almost 9, 10 years ago. I think the first volcano I had was probably 14 years ago. And nobody seems to be able to make, I mean, Sarah will argue with me. She's introduced me to a new kind, but
The roll through.
it's a very,
Yeah,
very
exactly.
expensive proposition. And I've been speaking with a number of different providers trying to find something that's less expensive, and I've really struggled with it. And then when you find something that's less expensive, then there's a weird component to it, like you have to use a cylinder, and that cylinders you have to replace them, or there's always something to it that always makes it a bit of a headache and expensive. But I really hope to see, as you suggest, people do this, but I'm not smart enough with engineering or other things to know how that would go about doing that. But it's I've watched the industry struggle for years with it.
Interesting, thank you. Also, just a quick question about the R&D licenses, because I do tissue culture myself and germplasm maintenance. And I'm interested in R&D. I was wondering whether it would be an option to acquire an R&D license for the UK, so I can sort of freelance and be able to supply genetics and maybe SOPs for certain companies and whatnot.
Yeah, it is within the realm of possibilities to apply to the Home Office. I mean, we've been through this process, and we've been through a number of audits on a facility that's not yet built. And the last time I think we met with the head auditor, I think she noted to us, Greg, that there was somewhere around 2,000 applications in, and that they were all there was a long list of humans. So if it's something that you're interested in doing, I would suggest doing it as soon as possible, because it seems like there's a lot of interest in it, and the queue is the queue.
Mhm.
So, but
Yeah.
it's worth looking into. I think the trick may be around the MH. I don't know how it works for R&D. I know that called commercial, you would have to have it stood up, but I'm not certain about R&D. I don't know if that would be the case, but it could quite possibly be that you'd have to.
My goal would be to acquire sort of intellectual property and to develop genetics that are proprietary for certain companies like yourselves. And that'd be my interest. But thank you for your help. Any help is much appreciated.
If I could just to put in, just because we do usually only ask our guests to stay until 8 p.m. So we've got Louise who's got her hand up as well. So unless Rick, you've got like a very quick question, we try and get through.
No, I don't want to take up anyone's time. Anything I can just ask through you or Sarah, really.
Okay. Well, we'll hopefully have our guests back again. So we want to get lots of questions. So
I can be very selfish, so I'll stay out of it.
You're okay, Rick. If you've got anything very quick you did want to ask, I'm sure
No, it's fine.
And Rick, Sarah has my contact details, and I'm happy to pick up the phone and have a chat anytime.
I'm trying my best, and I've got great intentions as far as I'm concerned. I'm sure other people know where I come from, and my ideology is quite something that was very interesting. I think I might be able to help you with the microbe limit. I think I might have the SOPs that work. You know that company you were talking about with you said a hydrochloric acid. I think it's a hydrochlorous acid that you were talking about, not a hydrochloric acid.
Well, that was a joke, actually. Apparently not.
No, that's not a joke. That's not a joke. Hydrochloric acid showers is a perfect SOP, if you ask me.
All right. Okay. Well, I was guessing at that, so I'm glad that I got lucky with my guess. I don't know.
Yeah, if you want to kill a fusarium or something like that, like a fungus, that's pretty difficult to kill. I mean, we use it when we have like a fusarium in your eye or something like that. A 1% fusarium eye wash will kill fusarium in your eye. So these are very interesting SOPs that you're talking about.
Okay. Well, all right. I'm sure you guys are going to talk again in the future. Just sorry, Sky. Did you want to say something?
No, I was just going to ask Louise if she had her
Yeah,
question.
yeah, Louise, if you want to say something. I don't know if our guests are able to stay past 8 o'clock. I just don't know to give them respect.
No, I'm actually quite happy to speak. I'm actually taking it very back to the basics here, folks. You're talking about things that I know nothing about. I'm a 56-year-old nana of 3 grandchildren with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome and a shitload of other conditions. Now, what we need is, never mind what you're talking about now, we need the basic information in packages, in some form of information that we can hand out. I'm in Northern Ireland, where the stigma that I have suffered, like I'm standing over here, I did a BBC online interview, I've gone to a conference to speak, and I've the stigma, I've lost my marriage over my cannabis medicine choice. So what you need to be doing, as well as remembering about all the basic, what's this and what, you need to be remembering to send us out information packages to keep us up to date so that we can pass it on to other patients. Please.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
That's brilliant.
Louise. Does anyone else have any questions?
And we do have I would just say that in answer to that also, so on the 4C Labs website, we do have the products listed that we're currently carrying. As more come, more will be listed, and there will be COAs connected to every single one, so you can see the certificate of authenticity. We as a company can't talk about the effectiveness of a medicine for a specific thing. So that has to come from research studies, which are best found in other places other than on our website. But I just wanted to throw that out there. And I don't know, guys, Kieran and Sarah and Sky, if there's a place that you guys use for your patients where they can go to look at studies, or if they're supposed to go to the MPPC. I'm not sure where they go, but I just think that this might be an opportune time to just mention what that is again.
Yeah, you can do. I mean, we are, on the Discord, we have like a patient information section where we kind of list everything. When you join the Discord, it points you to there. So you look at all the information that's in there.
Got it.
We can integrate anything into the Discord, really, on the MCPA website.
Okay. All right. Sarah, unless you're in any disagreement,
There is one last question.
Okay, very quick. Go on.
Cal from PAX says, a lot of patients I meet are still preferring to smoke their prescription over vaporizing it. Do you have any thoughts on what clinicians or vaporizer brands could be doing to encourage people to choose vaping over smoking?
I mean, that's what we're supposed to do. I like I said, I've invested in this Mighty because I find it to be very effective. And it definitely has the efficacy for me. So I'm not, I don't know. I mean, I wish I could just buy 1 million of these and just hand them out for free is what I would like to do. But unfortunately, I can't do that right now. But I don't know how else to help.
Well, I think part of it too is that, vaporizing things generally has become a thing in the last 15 years, right? Before that, it wasn't a thing. My daughter's at high school today. There are kids, the bathroom's filled with children sitting on the stalls, standing on the toilets, all vaping. Everybody knows about the vaping, right? It's effective. It's discreet. You can slip it in your pocket. So, and I had a great chat. We had a little Christmas party, and I had a great chat with the fella from PAX whose name escapes me. James, do you remember? Kyle, great guy. They have a great product also, and I think it really just comes down to what people are doing. If you want to go out into the world and do you want to have your cannabis with you, it's a little more discreet and a little easier to have it in a vaporizer, and it works great. So
yeah, the PAX 3 is a great.
I don't think there's much pushing that you can, I don't think there's a lot of pushing you can do to push people into using a specific device. I think just making it available is important. And I think on the oil side, I can talk about this. I'm not going to talk about the specific thing. Sorry, I'm just trying to remind myself not to be bad. On the oil side, we have vapes coming so that if you want to use an oil vape rather than vaporize your flower, that you can do that. And I think for doctors, the medical side of it is the following: do no harm, and does the benefit outweigh the negatives? So if you're going to prescribe someone flower, it's obviously better for them if they vaporize it rather than smoke it, right? Under conventional terms. And if you're going to provide a product that's vaporizable, if you're going to provide an oil which is much more highly concentrated, that means you're going to be smoking even less. So that seems like the natural progression of things. But at the end of the day, humans are just going to do whatever they want based on what's convenient for them and what works.
All right, brilliant. Yeah, Sarah, unless you're in any objection, shall we close up? We're at 2 hours now. So, all right, so thank you. That's, yeah. Sorry.
Thank you to all the guests for coming.
Okay. Yeah, I've got a bit. I'll make sure to remember to thank everyone. I think. Unless Sky, sorry. Do you want to do? Is
Yeah, I
anyone
was just going to
thanks
remind
specifically?
everyone that our next industry meeting is Monday, February the 5th at 6 p.m. And then we've got our weekly patient meetings, which are every Wednesday at 6 p.m. And then we've got 2 vape and chills a week on a Friday and Sunday at 2 p.m.
And I
Yeah.
just wanted to butt in, sorry, Kieran. I just wanted
Right.
to mention while we've got some people on, if you're willing to do your patient testimonial, like your video on how cannabis helps you, I've done one. I put myself through it first, so you can look at me on YouTube
I've done one,
to do it
Kieran's done one.
for your inspiration. But basically, just tell people how cannabis helps you, how it's changed your life, and be passionate. That's all you need to do. And then, you know, send it me by email.
Nice, great. We're all covering all little bases here. So, yeah, I wanted to once again just thank our guests for attending this evening, Sky for co-hosting, Emma for modding, and Sarah for inviting our guests, and everyone at the MCPA who has helped make tonight possible. So, yeah, thank you, everyone. I hope you all have a great week, and we'll see you all soon. I'll see you Wednesday, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah, see you all Wednesday. Thank you again.
Take care.
Thank you
Bye.
for having us.
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
having us.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.